Today we're going to be comparing the green box versus the gray box SM58s and trying to determine if one of them is counterfeit or not. But I haven't seen any videos online talking about the two different box styles and anything about them. One of these was bought from a legit retailer and the other one was bought on Reverb from a seller who has sold many things over many years, but an awful lot of microphones, so that made me wonder where they were coming from. So first we have the gray box, and the packaging is very, very nice. There's no difference in any of the letters or accents or font sizes on either of the two boxes. But what you do notice is that on the gray box it says 2008. But on the green box it says 2019. But the quality is very, very good for both of them. There's no mistakes. And it feels like it's the same material, the same cardboard. Now turning to the side, we see that the gray box is made in China. I called Shure today and they told me that they've never made this microphone in China, unless it's for sale outside of the US. The reason I think that's really interesting is because on this side there's a sticker that says California warning. So this is obviously packaged for the US and yet it's made in China. So that would seem to suggest that this might be a counterfeit. But when you compare the stickers, the California sticker is on this side on the Mexican green box, but on the Chinese gray box it's on the other side. But the labels are very, very good quality and they look like they were coming from the same printer. Obviously the decals are different. One being Chinese, there's some Chinese lettering, but the SKU is the same and the barcode looks the same. It has a serial number and a manufacturing date on the Chinese gray box. 2019 it says, but on the Mexican green box there's only a serial number and no date of manufacture. So the only sticker that is notably different is the one that says Shure Incorporated, and there's 3 addresses on the Mexican green box, and there's also some sort of QR code or something, which you'll see is also present on the microphone itself. But the sticker on the Chinese gray box, well, there's only 2 addresses on there. So, I mean, this is the one that says 2008 on it, so it's possible they added a 3rd address. Okay, now let's take a look inside. Okay, I just opened the boxes and I can tell you the cardboard feels exactly the same. There is no difference that I can tell in the quality at all. However, the bubble wrap that contains the microphone is different, and I would say that the Mexican green box is a lower quality, less thick plastic than the gray box Chinese microphone. So let's take them out. But before we look at the microphones themselves, first let's look at what's in the box. So the Chinese gray box contains the pouch, the wrap, the clip, and the paperwork, but there is no gold circular thing, which I don't know what it's for, but neither of these has that, and I've seen that in some boxes, so I don't know why that's not present here anymore. They just don't sell it like that. Okay? But the paperwork is actually pretty different. Let's see what's in the box. The sticker is quite different too. Alright, so that's the Chinese gray box. And here's the Mexican green box. It has a green lettered sticker and less paperwork than the Chinese one, which I think reflects probably the fact that you saw there was a 2020, a newer date on the box, and there's a QR code right here, which suggests that, yeah, they're cutting down on paperwork like many electronics manufacturers now. This says 2023 on the paperwork, so yeah, that suggests that the Mexican one is a newer type. And then there's one piece of paperwork that says wired, product safety, warranty, and that's dated 2024, so very new. Remember that the manufacturing date was present on the Chinese one and said 2019 right on the sticker for the box. Now, in the Chinese box, there's a yellow 2014, and there's a 2017 all Chinese writing. It's obviously trace elements. Lead is present, probably, is what it's saying, presumably in the solder. Nothing else is flagged. I've seen another one of these before that had chromium, I think, ticked off, but that's that. The quality of the stickers is, I would say, better, thicker, nicer on the Chinese gray box. And there's also a limited warranty piece of paper in the Chinese gray box that says 2018 on the bottom. Okay. The full manual, which is quite a few pages, is here. That says 2018 and printed in China. And let's look at the clips. So these are exactly the same. I can't tell any difference at all in the way they feel, look, or anything. They seem perfect. Maybe in the light you can see that there might be some sort of difference in the middle part, but yeah, that's it. Okay, but the pouches are different. So look at the lettering. You might not be able to see this, but the font on the Chinese gray box is slightly smaller top to bottom, okay? And there's also a sticker hanging off the side of the Mexican green box case. However, on the inside, the stitching feels and looks exactly the same. And they both have a sticker inside, or a tag inside that says Made in China, and the font looks the same. Okay. So they're different. They don't look the same, but they pretty much are. Okay, now what you've been waiting for. Oh no, not quite. We gotta look at these clips. Okay. The clips are not quite the same, but only in the sense that the Mexican green box is just slightly shinier, and that's probably not going to show up on video. But it is very subtly, slightly more shiny than the Chinese gray box. And in the bottom, they look absolutely the same. In fact, yeah, I wouldn't be able to tell you which is higher quality. They seem exactly the same for me, except I will say that the Mexican green box, you need a lot of pressure to push the microphone in there and to make it sit. I can't even barely do it, and I have seen this before on green box microphones. This one works quite nicely. It seems better to me, the Chinese one. Okay, microphone. So, this is actually an SM58S. I'm sorry I didn't say that earlier, but you know, I wanted the switch because I don't have an AV guy who's going to scream at me. Alright, the font is exactly the same. The lip above the font is exactly the same. The two things in the middle here are exactly the same. The grill and the spacing in the grill looks exactly the same. Everything looks good there. Okay? The switch, exactly the same. Feels the same. Sounds the same. There's only two holes at the bottom. There is no CE symbol on either of these. The bottom does look different, okay? Sometimes you see people marking the ones with the ridge as a fake, and sometimes you see the ones that are flat on the bottom called out as fake. So I don't really know what to tell you, except that the Chinese gray box is flat, totally flat, whereas the green box Mexican is having a line in the middle. It's a circular line. When you look inside, they look identical. There is a picture of a trash can and the 1, 2, and 3, and then on the bottom it says Shure, and you're not going to be able to see that, but it looks exactly the same on both microphones. The key difference is that on the Mexican green box, there is a QR code really nicely printed on the inside there. And that may just be, yeah, coming from a newer thing. Maybe it's anti-counterfeit, maybe it links to the manual, which they didn't want to print. I don't know. Okay, let's take a look inside. Actually, before we take a look at the inside of the mics, let's get a weight. The Chinese gray box is 329 grams, and the Mexican green box is 326. Now, that's not very much of a difference, and if you consider that there's glue that is inside here, and there could be error in dispensing that glue, I don't think that that small of a difference necessarily means that one of them is fake. Also, this scale is not particularly accurate because if you separate the windscreen from the bottom of the mic, they seem to add up about the same. So the Mexican green box is 44 grams on the top, and the rest of the body is 283. Now, if I compare to the Chinese gray box, 45 on the top, and 283 on the bottom. So that doesn't really add up to the first number, so I would just need a better scale, but at least that gives you a ballpark on what the weights might be. Okay, now turning to the construction. Like I said before, there is absolutely no difference that I can see on the two heads of the microphones. Now, one thing I saw in the Dark Sky video was that his very advanced counterfeit showed some differences. Sorry, how do I get this in zoomed? There were some differences with the way that the threading was, and you can actually count the number of threads on the bottom of the aluminum. There is basically no lip until you get from the sprayed gray up into the aluminum, and then there are, I don't know, 5 or 6 threads, and then you can count the numbers of threads on the flat part just above that, and they are identical in both of these microphones. There is one difference on the plastic part. You can see where that dot is, where it was cut off. That dot is in a different position on the Mexican green box microphone. It's on the bottom, whereas the circle is right towards the top on the gray Chinese mic. Big difference on the top though. You can see that the gray is lighter on the Mexican green, which is usually a sign of authenticity, but it is still a gray foam on the Chinese gray box. It is gray, and but the foam does look different. I don't know why. And in the reflection of the light, there are 7 circles that are visible through there. And on the Chinese gray box, they appear to be almost copper colored at the bottom. You won't be able to see that. Whereas on the Mexican green box, there looks like a red mark in one of them, and then the other 6 holes are just silver. That's looking through the foam, okay? So, don't know what to think about that. The hooks around the edges of the plastic are identical. There's no difference. And the holes around the aluminum wrap, they're exactly the same. It looks totally the same. The only difference is that the Chinese one has a bit of a gap where it looks like the machine pressed it just off, and the Mexican one does not have that. I'm trying to find, where is the lip? Yeah, so it is perfectly aligned. There's the edge right there, and then on this one, yeah, there's a, let me bring it in again. Yeah, there's a little bit of a gap there. Okay, so I've seen pictures online of ones that have that error on them that are supposedly authentic, so I don't really think that's an issue. Okay, now let's open it up and see what the wiring looks like. Okay, so again, this is not the SM58. This has a switch, so the amount of glue that's going to be in there is different because you don't want to get it on the switch. But the yellow block at the bottom looks exactly the same in both microphones. The wires look the same. Remember that there's probably 4 wires, whereas there's probably only 2 in the one without a switch. But you can see the glue is in there, and the circuit board looks a little different, but the screws and the washer look exactly the same in both. Let me show you. This is now the Mexican green, and yeah, let's compare the color of the wires. They're the same. Okay, 2 yellows and 2 shades of green. Looks good. But, like I mentioned, oh, sorry, I was out of view. Yeah, so the wires, they're looking good. Okay, they look exactly the same. But what you will notice is different is that circuit board, I guess it is, on the top. Even though the screws and washers look really the same, which one is this? The Mexican green has a more green circuit board inside than the Chinese. Okay? They both have a plus symbol in the top corner, and there's no letters like you see on some, but they do look different. There's a positive symbol on the top, you can see that, but they're different. Okay, so don't know what to think about that, but I think that pretty much covers everything except sound quality. So now let's take a listen to what they both sound like.
This is the SM58 that is made in Mexico and comes in a green lettered box. I'm running it directly into a Focusrite Scarlett 4i4 3rd generation with the gain turned almost all the way up. This is the SM58 that is made in China and comes in a gray lettered box. I'm running it directly into a Focusrite Scarlett 4i4 3rd generation with the gain turned almost all the way up.
Okay folks, so there you have it. I can't tell any difference in the sound quality. So if one of these is truly a fake, then maybe we've reached the inflection point where they're just making the same thing. Well, let me know what you think. Thanks.